From FLX1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is Inside the FLX. Our program today begins when former Seneca County Judge Dennis Bender announced that he would be leaving his post in 2018. Out of that news and subsequent retirement, 3 candidates appeared and will go before voters in Thursday's primary. District Attorney Barry Porsch, former District Attorney Donna Cathy, and local attorney David Ettman will all be on the ballot. DA Porsch is our guest this hour. Thanks so much for being here and taking time.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me in.
So obviously I want to kick things off. Easiest question you're going to get probably ever. Why are you running for judge?
Why am I running? The people of this county deserve an independent, experienced, and hardworking county court judge. For over 15 years, I worked in a court every day, the second highest court in New York State, the Appellate Division Court. Since 2009, I've been the DA here in Seneca County. When I first took office, Josh, in 2009, if you remember, this county had experienced a great loss of confidence in the criminal justice system. We had a lot of scandals. We've restored confidence in the system. I've worked very hard, independent district attorney. I work typically 7 days a week. I've done 33 trials in 8 years. That's unmatched by any other attorney in the county. 41 straight wins at the Appellate Division Court, unmatched by any attorney in the state, probably. I run a non-political office, staffed evenly between Democrats and Republicans. I was re-elected last year as a Republican and a Democrat. I'm going to be the same type of county court judge, hardworking and independent.
Is that what makes you the best candidate for a judge, is the width or the breadth of experience?
Well, yes, and there's more than an experience with competence. Just because somebody's been a lawyer for 25 years or 35 years, what have you done in that 35 years? What are your big cases? How many trials? How many times have you been at the Appellate Division to argue a case, or the Court of Appeals in Albany? I've done on that. I've done that a lot, and I've been very successful. I have a track record of success in my last 8 years as DA.
Now, during that time as district attorney, what are some of the things that you think have happened that have brought you to this point? I guess, what about that experience, or what parts of that experience do you recall or think about when you look at this moment that you're in right now?
Well, generally, being a district attorney, we have certain duties and obligations. We have a duty to be fair to everyone. Our goal is to seek justice. It's not to seek convictions. So we're already in a quasi-judicial role. And moving into the county court judge, a lot of DAs move into the county court judge position. Judge Bender did 25 years ago. Judge Falvey did in Yates County. Judge Healy just did 2 years ago in Wayne County. So it's a natural progression.
Now, one of the aspects of this that I think you're talking a little bit about is the community relation part of it, the interaction, the being there and doing the right thing for the county and for the system. How do you continue to grow or enhance the community relation aspect of what the judgeship is?
Well, if I'm elected judge, that's going to be hard to do, because you're bound by what goes on in the courtroom, the filings in the court. If you have a trial, you're bound by the evidence in the courtroom. If you decide motions, you're bound by the papers that are submitted. Being a judge is actually a very lonely position. I work for 11 judges at the Appellate Division, and basically hold up in their office all day unless they're in the courtroom. There's a very limited role for community involvement or community outreach as a county court judge.
Now, to that end, what do you see as something that you want to work toward or work on if given the opportunity to be the next judge?
One thing I noticed in the last 8.5 years of being out there in court every day is sometimes people have to sit in court for hours and hours to wait for their case to be called. And you know, I worked in a factory for 13 years, and it was tough getting time off for an hour to go to a doctor appointment or something. So you can imagine people that have to go out to county court for either jury duty or maybe family court, if one of their cases, or criminal court or relative. They just can't get off work and go out there and sit there for 8 hours. And I've seen cases where people sat for like 6 hours until their case was called. I'm one of those persons. Yeah, I sat a lot of hours in the courtroom. We need to fix that so people are not sitting around in the courthouse or courtroom all day.
Is that an organizational thing that needs to change, or what do you think? How could something like that be changed or be made more efficient, I guess?
It can be changed. It just has to be done.
Okay.
Judge Doran, who is our administrative judge for the 7th Judicial District, he created a judicial task force. He appointed me to be a member. I'm the only prosecutor on that task force, and one of the goals is to improve the efficiency and economy of the court system. And one of the big aspects is not having attorneys and clients sitting around in courts all day and missing other appointments. So that's something we need to work on here in this county.
Is that in the administrative side of the judgeship one of the more, I guess, underappreciated or forgotten aspects of the job? It isn't just presiding over a case, it's all of the work that gets you there and that follows, right?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of, most of what a judge does is behind the scenes. It's within his office that the public never sees. For the most part, the average citizen never goes out to that courthouse. I'm thinking of myself for how old I am, and I was out of that courthouse when I was 18 or 19 to be on a grand jury. I never went back there again until I got elected DA. And so the average citizen doesn't know what really goes on. What Judge Bender did for 25 years.
So obviously, Judge Bender, long tenure, one of the more successful judges in the entire region. How does one follow in his footsteps? Obviously, 20-plus year tenure. How does someone new come in and pick up where he left off, and what kind of challenges are going to be presented to whoever that is?
Person who gets elected has to work hard, has to be smart, has to be competent, has to give it their all. Typically, like I said, I work 7 days a week. I don't go home at 5 o'clock. I rarely go home before 7. I'm there sometimes 8, 9. Ask the deputies who work down in the basement. Sometimes I'm there till midnight. And the other thing I want to mention, you probably didn't know this, probably your public doesn't know this, but a lot of times when I'm there, at 7 o'clock at night or on a Saturday morning or maybe a Sunday morning, Judge Bender's there too. He put in a lot of hours. Our 2 cars were the only 2 cars in the parking lot there after hours on the weekends.
And I think one of the underappreciated aspects of this is the workload. People might not realize or appreciate how much work actually goes into it, just in terms of the cases that are coming at you and what you have to do to prepare and then after. The administrative, or should I say the appellate work that you've done, it seems to put you in a position where you're uniquely qualified to take on this role. Talk about that experience, that part of the experience a little bit, and why that best qualifies you think, for this job.
That was great experience, Josh. Worked there for over 15 years at the appellate division. What I did there is I would review records on appeal. So if you had a trial down here or a case and a party took an appeal, it would come to the appellate division. I would review it. I reviewed family court appeals, complex civil cases, huge criminal cases, and I would write a report to the judges recommending affirmance, modification, reversal, and I would write the judge's decision. Most of the time they agree with me.
And for those who don't have the legalese or the background, that sounds like incredibly tedious work. Is it as tedious as it sounds?
It is. You're basically sitting in an office by yourself with a computer, and you're doing legal research all day long. You're reading all the papers in the case. Some of these records were huge. Some of them came in banker boxes, and you had to go through every page. You had to do, days of legal research and write a report summarizing the facts and the law and giving a conclusion.
So one of the aspects about running for any office at all that's elected, you end up talking to people. You end up going door to door, collecting signatures. At some point, you're talking to people in the community. What are you hearing from people, and what are you thinking about in terms of what they're saying to you and how you can best represent them, I guess, to some degree? Obviously, like you said, the judgeship is a very straight and narrow. You're operating within the bounds of the law. But you still are hearing from folks. What are you hearing, and what are you taking away from those conversations?
I've met a lot of people, June and July, right up to yesterday. People even on the street will stop me and we'll talk. Post office, things like that, grocery stores. The number one issue that I've heard is the pistol permit process. A lot of people want to get a pistol permit and they have not gotten one. And they ask me my views on that. I don't give them a view on their specific case. We're not allowed to do that. But what I do tell people is I'm going to follow the law as county court judge. And there's a Article 400 of the penal law specifies the pistol permit process. There's three types of permits. One to have a pistol in your home, one to have a pistol in your business, the other one is the concealed carry. And I'm going to follow the law on pistol permit applications.
How did we get there with that particular issue? With folks with that being one of the big things that they're concerned about?
Well, county court judge, the law gives each county court judge discretion on the pistol permit process as far as whether they grant them or not. And if you're denied a permit, your remedy is to commence a lawsuit against the judge at the appellate division. Your average citizen cannot afford to do that. That's an extremely expensive proceeding. So they get their pistol permit denied, and that's kind of the end of it. They just go without a pistol their whole life.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that one of those? Obviously you're following the law, you're following the procedures. Is there a level of frustration with how ambiguous the process is in terms of the rules and regulations?
I think there is. Just from what voters are telling me, they feel as though they're frustrated. They're not getting their day in court. They're not being able to be heard on this issue when they're denied a permit. And people deserve to have their day in court. They deserve to come there and be heard.
So obviously, any race in any way, shape, or form, any campaign process, some folks will automatically assume that it's becoming politicized, that it's gotten politicized when you start seeing mailers and the different campaign flyers and things like that, positive and negative. What do you say to those folks, since this is one of those races where it shouldn't be political? There shouldn't be any difference between a Democrat or a Republican as far as a judgeship is concerned.
Well, in this case, all three candidates are registered Republicans. I happen to be running under 8 lines. One of my opponents is on 6 lines. The other one's on 4 lines. Judicial candidates, by law, can run on more than one party without the party's approval. That's why I chose to run under all 8 lines. I was elected last year as a Democrat and a Republican. It's a political race. It's bound to be political. Mm-hmm. Really can't take the politics out of a political race. But I think as far as our race, I think it's pretty tame compared to other races. I was in a race last year that got kind of nasty. This race is pretty tame in comparison to that. Mm-hmm. I think for the most part, everybody's been very professional.
Yeah. So what do you say to the voters who are listening saying, wow, he has the support from all of your, you're on these lines, you're on 8 lines. Last year you were on the Democratic and the Republican line.
Yeah, and the working families line.
And that cross-platform support, what does that mean? What does that mean for the voter who might not be as well connected or might not be paying attention to, every single flyer or whatnot that comes out?
Well, I'm a bipartisan DA. I'm elected as a Republican Democrat. We need to have office holders, especially the judgeship. It's got to be a non-political position. We don't want a Republican judge. We want a non-political judge or a bipartisan judge. That's what I'm trying to be. That's why I'm running around all these lines.
All right. Well, my last question here for you before we get you going. We've flown through this conversation. Where can folks connect with you, learn more about what you want to bring to the table, and obviously ahead of Thursday's primary, what's your message to those voters?
Well, the message is get out and vote. Typically, primary elections have half the voter turnout that a general election has. We need to get out and vote. I want people to get out and vote. I've been sending flyers out trying to remind people about Thursday's vote. It's on Thursday this year, not Tuesday. I want people to turn out and vote. We want the best candidate to win. People need to turn out and vote. As far as learning more about me, they can find it out right here on fingerlakes1.com. I have the top ad at the top of the page if you go on your website. And all you have to do is click that link and you go right to my website.
I do want to squeeze that in there. Are you concerned at all about the day of the week that the election is falling on? It seems to be a rather unique scenario. I've gone back 20 years in the calendar and I can't find a date where it happened before, where it was moved to a Thursday.
I've never known it, and I've been voting for over 40 years. Actually, the first time I saw that, I thought it was a mistake on the state Board of Elections website. I actually called our local election office, hey, there's a mistake No, it is on Thursday. So all of my mail, I've really been pushing this Thursday, September 13th, and all my mailers, and I'll say it 2 or 3 times in the same mailer to get that point across because it's so unusual. And of course, 9/11 was yesterday, and because of the ceremonies and memorial services, that's why the state switched it to Thursday. I think it was a good move to do that, but we really need to educate the voters to turn out and vote.
All right. Well, really appreciate you coming in and making time for us. Best of luck in Thursday's primary and moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Josh, for having me.
So that's going to do it for us today. I'd like to thank Barry Porsch, our listeners, and of course, FingerLakes1.com for making this program possible. Keep listening, and until next time, stay tuned to FingerLakes1.com for the latest news, weather, sports, and more.